happy Friday. And thank you for joining us for another Mavens of Manufacturing episode today. I have Danielle from OptiPro Systems. How are you doing, Danielle?
Good. Thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks for coming on with us today. So to get started, can you just do a brief introduction of yourself and the company that you work for and a little background of the company that you work for and some of the things that they are involved with creating and the industries that they touch on?
Sure, absolutely. So I work at OptiPro Systems. We're in Ontario, New York. There's a few different branches to our business. I work in the optics side of the business. So we are CNC builders for the precision optics industry, the machines that make the optics. We're also a distributor for metalworking machines in New York State, and also a distributor for Mastercam, which is a cam software. And I know a few weeks back you guys had Meaghan West on. That was a great interview. So we're a reseller in New York State and training facility for Mastercam.
Nice. So with yourself, can you kind of dive in a little bit how you got involved with manufacturing and let us know, is it something that you've always considered as a career pathway? Was it something that, you had on your radar to pursue? How did you get involved with manufacturing?
Sure. So my dad does own OptiPro, but my journey in manufacturing started at a young age. So my brothers and sisters and I all grew up around the business. We would come to work with our dad. We would spend time in the shop, spend time at his office. And then my actual journey into the workforce in manufacturing started slightly after high school. After high school, I worked in the restaurant business. I moved down to North Carolina for about a year, and then I came back, and my dad gave me I'll call it friendly ultimatum that I either needed to enroll in school or get a job. And I was working, but it wasn't a career path. And so that's where I started manufacturing. So there's a business across the street called Optimax, and he was one of the founders. But by the time I had applied there, he was just a silent business partner. And I applied there and got the job and worked in precision manufacturing, ran machines, lathes. I ran some of our equipment. They have a lot of our machines over there. Ran the conventional equipment, moved around in departments, so conventional, CNC, and then also towards the last few years I was there, worked in process engineering and production control.
So is Optimax and OptiPro still separate companies, or are they involved with
Yes.
each other in some way or
So
form?
they're completely separate companies. And my dad is not a part of Optimax at all anymore, but
Okay.
we're very close. So we're very close in location, but we're also very close in the sense that they have over 20 of our machines. So where we make the machines that make the optics, they make the optics. And, we're right across the street. So there's lots of collaboration that goes on.
So you mentioned too before, like during your journey, you did a lot of shop floor stuff and learning how to use machines and everything. Do you have any like university type educational background, or did you learn everything hands-on while you were working with both companies?
Hands-on, completely. So I had no prior experience in manufacturing, and I'll say that was intimidating to start. But everything is learned on the job, and 20 years later, it's still like that. I mean, so much is learned on the job. Yes, there's outside apprenticeship programs. There's, local community colleges that have, machining degrees or certificates, and then of course the universities. But everything that I learned was on the job. I mean, it had been years since I had even thought about, the metric system, trig, all of that. I mean, I didn't really enjoy it in high school. And, then so I would say that was like an overwhelming part to start. Not to say that it's heavy math, there's machining math, and believe it or not, trig and all of those become exciting once you're making parts and realizing how it applies. So it is important to obviously stay in high school and go through the struggle of all of that math and science and all of that, but to see it outside and then have a hands-on job and see how it applies was really neat.
I think that's an interesting point that you made because I am not a fan of math. That's why I went down the whole English major route and got involved with technical writing. And my husband, who just currently went back to school, he's doing all of these math classes again. And he's just like pulling his hair out because he's just like, it's a different way that they teach it from what I remember.
Yeah.
But making that connection to, you called it machining math, which I think is really interesting because one of the high schools that I recently visited, they have machining or Haas machines there. And I think anyone that can make math fun and apply it to something like CNC machining, where you're actually making, usable parts that can go into something that's changing people's lives. I think that's a great way to actually pitch math,
Yeah.
especially to someone like me and others who can't really stand math.
Yeah.
My sister's a math teacher and she's always like trying to get me to love math. And I'm like, nope, not happening. But I think if I were to like do hands-on learning with CNC machining, maybe my mind would be changed. So that's really cool that you made that connection. So one of the things that we talked about prior to this was some of the things that OptiPro does to recruit the next generation workforce, because that is a major challenge, it seems like, that exists among manufacturers across industries. So, can you go over in terms of recruiting what some of the obstacles are for OptiPro Systems to try to find that next generation or that next level of talent for what you do?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it is very difficult out there right now. And I'll say we're very connected with the local community colleges and the universities, but it really needs to start at a younger level, because, even before high school, but at a high school level, what we're trying to do is stay involved with, the high school teachers, professors, reach out to them, give them tours. We partnered with a local high school, East High, and developed, so we do develop the software for our own custom machines. And we were able to make a version that the teacher could have on the laptops that the students have for programming a CNC machine for spherical optics. So what it gets them is a taste of what it's like to be in industry and what the job could look like, but also they're going to have a skill set right out of high school that could help them enter into a career. So I think it's critical because myself, I school was not for me. So I went right into industry from high school. It wasn't until like 10 years after being in industry that I did want to go back to school and get a degree in the industry that I was in, because I realized, I said I didn't like math and science, but I love math and science. And so once I was able to apply the math and science that I liked, I was like, yeah, I love math and science. And so I think, from a high school standpoint, some of our highest paid people here at OptiPro are high school graduates. And I think the important message is that we don't need you to know, and so many businesses out there in manufacturing don't need you to know how to run a machine or make a part or even know and understand all of the math, or the end use of the component walking in the door. It's going to be hands-on training that we have to give you once you're here. There's some simple things that you can embody that are not technical at all to get in the door. And it's being a team player, showing up on work, being interested, stuff like that is what we're looking for knowing that the skilled set group of machinists there's not a huge pool to pick from out there. We have to, grow our own, and be that we need to get people started at a younger age. And I will say that it's not easy. It's, because you're taking high school students who are becoming adults. So even myself, I have to remind myself sometimes that, like, this is not easy. I'm dealing, half with teaching the technical skills and half with maybe teaching some adulting skills. And, we have to give them a little bit more rope, to maybe make some mistakes, of, showing up on time or using cell phones too much or something like that. We have to understand that they have to be taught what it's like to be in a job, and we're not getting someone that has been in industry for 10 years.
I think that's a great point. The high school that I'm speaking with currently right now within my community, it's actually the high school that I graduated from. And I visited their tech education classrooms, and it was interesting to hear from both the teachers and the students. So the teachers, I mean, it's the basic level skill set that they're teaching these students just to kind of prep them for those advanced courses that they might get in front of either at vocational school, or even if they do find a job right away out of high school, they at least have some knowledge. And I think that's great that OptiPro is actually involved with the software part of things too, because that wasn't something that I was seeing at this particular high school. But even with their welding class, the welding teacher's like, this is just a basic skill set for welding, but it's also teaching them the soft skills, how to show up on time. So some of the things that you mentioned, and how to put your cell phone away, like he said that verbatim with what he was trying to instill in these kids taking his welding course. And then, taking those basic skill sets, but also connecting them to other opportunities that they might not know of. So with their construction class, the kids were learning how to wire a house with all the electrical. And when I asked them, what do you think you're going to use this skill for? They were like, I don't know. If I build a house, I know how to wire it. And I'm like, there's so much more you could be doing with this opportunity that they don't even know. So I think one idea is manufacturers really getting heavily involved with the communities that they're in. So is there anything in particular that OptiPro does to, I know that you mentioned that you bring the software on, but do you have anyone on your team that actually goes into these classrooms and talks to the students directly, and maybe might teach a course or something, or be involved with the teaching process of it?
Yeah, so we do. At the college level, we help develop the CNC, running the machines. We help develop that curriculum so that we could equip college level students, young and old, coming out of school with the skills, some of the skills they need. At high school level, I will say, to date, we more visit the classrooms, talk to them about the jobs. The high schools around here are very good at, it can sometimes be overwhelming, but you got to do it at scheduling tours through the shop. So,
That's
we do
awesome.
a lot of tours here, and I will say more so on site here than actually going into the classrooms.
So in terms of community, and not just working with universities and high schools, but what else does OptiPro do in terms of getting the other community part of it involved? So like, maybe the Chamber of Commerce within your area, or, the local businesses, like the smaller businesses that, might be overlooked or taken for granted to have a partnership with manufacturing. The first thing that's coming to mind is Dunkin' Donuts, but it's because I need coffee. So like businesses like that, how are you connecting with your other community members?
Yeah, so we will attend, we do, it's a good question. I'll say we attend different job fairs.
Okay.
Something comes to mind though, and I'm not sure if this is exactly the question you're asking, but a few years to just connect the community in general for, I guess, understanding manufacturing and manufacturing in the US, and the critical need and the skills gap. A few years back, I was, lucky enough to sit in an audience that Del Ratcliffe was speaking at. And she's the director of, I actually wrote it down so I wouldn't mess this up, Manufacturing Resilience and Assurance, the MRA program, and the IBAS program in the DoD. And, this is at a national security level, right? So the skills gap affects that too. So I think that I know this isn't exactly where you asked, but like, in as far as engaging the community and maybe having them understand and having a conversation at home at the dinner table, or even, at a level with somebody that has been in a career for a while and may not understand the importance of their role. So, the manufacturing skills gap is, yes, filling it brings economic growth back home to our communities, but it's also at a national security level. And, if you think about it, even in a sense of, she said something that was very important, and that is that there are more ways that you can, serve your country, and that is through the parts that are manufactured, the critical components that goes into the systems that protect our soldiers, that protect us. And I think that's important, because that is a way that you can feel engaged at your job and like your manufacturing job and want to excel in it. Like, that's critical in employee retention, I think, with them being able to see that, understand that. And, maybe defense isn't your thing, but medical is. And, there's so many components in the different instruments that doctors and surgeons use. So you can be helping advance, the medical industry, the space industry, just by what you're making on a machine, or what you're designing, or what you're testing. So I don't know. I know that doesn't exactly answer your question, but as far as community goes, I think that is what we try to preach and about, why manufacturing is not a dirty job. It's a very important job.
I think that's a great answer, though, and it does tie in the importance of, helping the outside community understanding the importance that the manufacturing companies within their society really helps bring, especially in terms of economic stability, like you brought up. And I really like that that quote that she said, you can help serve your country in more ways, and manufacturing is one of them.
Yeah.
I was reading an article on the semiconductor shortage that's going on here, and it stated something pretty similar, where it is a national security threat if we don't start bringing some of that production back home.
Right.
Because we do a lot of R&D here for semiconductor and chip production, but a lot of it is overseas that we sent it to. And there's so many opportunities to provide more jobs if we can just start bringing more of that home.
Right.
And I think that hit the nail on the head for that. So that was a great, I'm going to have to look her up, because I've never heard of her before.
Yeah.
So definitely have to look her
She's
up.
pretty incredible.
So for Mavens of Manufacturing, I produce this platform to help highlight amazing women like yourself within manufacturing. And I kind of just wanted to get your insight on what you think women bring to the table in terms of, producing and making products, and maybe in non-traditional ways too. Because a lot of women that I've met also have been heavily involved within sales and marketing. And I've had a conversation with her name is Allison, and she's out in the Washington area, and she said that where we're lacking is in the technical and engineering side of things. We do have women in this sector, but there's few women like yourself who've actually been on the shop floor and handled products and went through the whole kind of ladder to get to the point where you are. So in terms of the technical and engineering side of things, what sort of skill sets do you think women bring in those areas to help manufacturing progress forward and grow?
Yeah, great question. And I know that I mentioned to you prior to this that I might make some generalizations, and the disclaimer is that there are men that embody these qualities too. And there's women that don't. But I think that there's just what women can bring to the workforce is organization, the attention to detail. I mean, if you do some research in just the human eye, our eyesight, that to me, I know more about just because of being in the optics industry and having to look at optics for, defects that you cannot see very well, but that could make a huge difference in how a system performs. Dexterity, finer motor skills. I think the organization is a huge one, especially in a production line, and putting together a production line. The critical thinking, and then I think thinking under pressure. Life in general, is can be stressful, and if you add taking care of a home and kids and all of that in the mix, like you are juggling a lot of things, and that is going to be very similar to some of these, setups on a machine, a critical, setup, a critical project, being able to work under those pressures. I think that we can do a little bit more naturally, and I think that's a huge benefit to a team.
I definitely agree. I also have this debate with my husband a lot at who the better multitasker is. And I was like, you can only handle like one project at a time.
Yeah.
Where I'm like handling multiple. And he is like, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But just as a final question, as we're wrapping up our time here, was there any question that you were hoping that I would ask but didn't get to?
I don't think so. I think if I could give some advice to women or people in general that are looking to get into manufacturing, I love the word compartmentalize. Going into any type of maybe new job or new project or big meeting, it can be intimidating, especially if you don't have prior background. And if you can, I use this all the time at work and in life, of just all of those things that you are like self-doubting or saying or nervous about, if you just kind of put them into that imaginary box and set them aside and allow yourself to think about them later in the evening, whatever, and get through whatever your obstacle is for that day. 9 times out of 10, I don't even go back to that box at night, because that was just all like pre-nervous, jitters. And that'll be in, whether it's in, an interview or, again, getting into manufacturing and having no prior knowledge of it. It shouldn't be something that you say no to. You should give it a try.
I agree. I feel like I read an interesting article a couple of days ago where it was saying that with job descriptions, if a woman feels like she's not 100% qualified with everything that's listed in the job description, she'll turn away and look somewhere else. Whereas a man will look at 60% of it, and if he feels like he's 60% qualified for the position, then they'll apply and try it out. So
Yeah.
I think we definitely need to change our mindset and not be such perfectionists in a way, and just take a chance if we, meet that 60% and definitely follow through. Because I think within manufacturing as a whole, it's all about collaboration and
Yes.
teamwork. And yeah, there is that competitiveness to it, but it's friendly competitiveness,
Yes.
like people are driving each other to do better and encouraging them to come up with better ideas. And that's great for innovation overall. So
Yeah.
I think that's really good points. Well, if anyone wants to learn more about yourself or OptiPro Systems, where should they go and how can they contact you?
So they can feel free to email me and our website. They can check out our website, www.optipro.com, to learn more about OptiPro. And I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Great. Well, Danielle, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy day to join us for Mavens of Manufacturing and sharing your story with us. Are there any, because we were talking about recruiting, does OptiPro have any positions available now that you're looking for talent?
Yes, we do. We always have a need for technicians to run the CNCs in both the metal side and the optic side, engineers. I think we'll have a lot more openings in the near future too. So
Fantastic. So anyone listening in right now, if you know anyone with those skill sets for those types of positions, reach out to Danielle and OptiPro and let's help close that skills gap further because we definitely need it. Thanks for joining in again for another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. I hope everyone has a great weekend. And thanks again, Danielle.
yes, thank you. And thanks for doing this. It's really important.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.
This episode of Mavens of Manufacturing has been sponsored by Z Ink Solutions. Z Ink Solutions. This isn't your grandmother's copywriting service. We provide copywriting and copy editing services that provide impactful text and memorable storytelling for a variety of brands and industries. Contact us today at zinkSolutions.com. That's z-inksolutions.com.